With the Asia Cup set to start very soon, naturally Indian cricket fans are very focused on how it is that India will do in this tournament. But more than that, or just as much as that, there is naturally a lot of focus, an intense focus on the fact that Virat Kohli will be making his return to the Indian cricket team, and he's doing so having not quite gotten over the large run of bad form that he's been experiencing in recent times. Now obviously, due to that, anything that Kohli generally says or doesn't say in recent times has become obviously something that people tend to scrutinize, and Kohli has actually said quite a few things in a recent interview with the Indian Express, which we are going to actually look at over here. We're going to look at what we think are the more interesting or noteworthy points, or the things that he mentioned in that particular interaction, and we're going to obviously break it down as we always do, look at it, and of course add some context, add some perspective, as we are wont to do. So without much further delay, let's actually check out what it is that Kohli has said and what it is that you can read into in terms of his psyche, his preparation, state of mind, all of that. So first off, obviously there's a lot he spoke about and how he deals with stuff like pressure and criticism and things like that. Again, considering the fact that he's a former India captain, has been arguably one of the most important members of the team, that's something that he would have had to deal with a lot. And he's actually said that from him, that it is crucial to stay in touch with his inner self. He's in fact mentioned also very clearly that, and I'll read here where he says that I personally have experienced times, even in a room full of people who support and love me, I feel alone. So that is obviously something that I think a lot of people who have struggled with mental health related issues can relate to, and I think it's pretty courageous and pretty big of him to actually speak up about it, because oftentimes people who are going through such struggles just need to hear some sort of an acknowledgement that there are other people out there who deal with similar things, and that they're not necessarily alone, which is a feeling that Kohli did say that he would feel at times. So he did also mention that the way he chose to actually deal with that was to take out time for himself and reconnect with his inner self, because according to him, that's the only way for him to feel a sense of sanity and enjoyment whilst he did his work. And again, this is great advice if you are also someone who goes through or has felt of such things, that it is often good to take that time out and take some time for yourself, often referred to in modern parlances as me time, that it is important to do. And Kohli has admitted that he's pretty much done that over the course of his career, because in his own words, if you lose that connection, it wouldn't take very long for other things to crumble around you. Now again, Kohli is someone who in recent times, if you'd actually heard him speak, and if you heard the way he talks and the things he says, you'd realize that his perspectives have shifted a lot. Because I think, and this is just my personal opinion, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, is that since he's been going through this prolonged period of struggle, he's almost seemed mortal again. There was a point when Kohli in international cricket was untouchable, but now it's reached a point where a lot of people are troubling him, and he can't quite find that one little thing that made him the greatest player arguably of his generation and one of the greatest of all time. So obviously you also feel that perspective shine through when he's talking here as well, where he talks about having to deal with struggle and how exactly it is that he dealt with that. Now obviously if we're talking about that, it is also important where he mentions, or he talks about ways that he chose to de-stress when he felt that things were becoming a little too much for him, and he talks about things that he enjoyed doing. Now one of the things that he did say, or two of the things he did mention, which were very important, one, as you can see, he talks about spending time with his family, and he also spends time talks about how travel helps him. Now again, that even when he does take his breaks, these periods of break or periods of rest from playing or representing the Indian cricket team, he does often go out to travel. You do see him posting pictures on social media of him traveling, and you note for a fact that this is something that he enjoys generally doing. So again, not much of a surprise, but it is nice to see that acknowledgement that this is something that does help him unwind and de-stress. He also mentions, of course, as you can see in the last slide here, he mentions coffee. So this is an interesting one, because he's in his own words says that he feels like something of a coffee connoisseur, and that more often than not, he always looks to go out to different places and try the different types of coffees, at least, whatever it is that is available in a particular region of the world. Again, this is something that if, you have an interest in food or, particularly stuff like coffee, you'd be able to relate to. It's an interesting thing that, he considers himself a coffee connoisseur who likes going around and trying different types of coffee. Of course, if you're talking about, and coffee is something that would be also part of his diet, he does also go into some interesting detail about the kind of dietary restrictions that he places upon himself in order to stay his fittest. So he also first talks about, the do's and don'ts for him, and which he mentions that he tends to generally avoid processed sugary foods or foods that have high gluten count. He's also said that, he avoids dairy, or he doesn't, look to consume dairy as often as can be in his case. And he also mentions that, and this is an interesting trick he mentioned here, is saying that, one of the ways he chooses to keep his health in check is that he'll not eat to his full capacity of, how much he feels like eating. He'll eat to around 90% of that. And again, those who've been fans of Kohli long enough note for a fact that he is something of a foodie, something he even acknowledges here. And he says that, being a foodie, it's not always easy to eat till about 90% of your capacity, but it is something that I do in order to actually, ensure that my health levels, particularly considering the fact that, you're an athlete who's playing the highest level of sport all year round, that to keep his health in check in that regard, he does tend to do. This is an interesting tip for sure. And of course, he does also, talk about, since we're talking about his dietary restrictions, he talks about his cheat days, or specifically, as he'll go on to correct, his cheat meals rather than just a day. So he did say that, the one thing that I love to indulge in, again, it's not something that's much of a shock if you've known Kohli. He said that one of the things that he likes indulging in a lot is, of course, chole bhature. Again, there is a very popular video out there where he talks about his love for chole bhature. Not much of a surprise there. Again, you can look it up. And he says, but he does also go on to mention that despite the fact that he likes indulging in chole bhature, he's saying that I look to keep my diet in check. So in case you're wondering what he says here, it means that he looks to keep his calorie count, or his calorific intake, his macros, all of these things, he looks to keep it in check, so that he doesn't actually necessarily overeat even on days when he's indulging, which is why he says that it's never really as much about a cheat day as it is a cheat meal on a particular day. So even if he has one cheat meal, thereafter there's still a focus on eating healthy and eating right. Obviously, there's a lot of interesting talking points which he did mention about here. Not just, of course, talking about his dietary intakes. He talks about de-stressing. He talks about, how it is that he dealt with, mental health struggles, how it is that he keeps in touch with his inner self. What, according to you, do you think was the more interesting point or thing that, helped you actually pick up something new? Do let us know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for joining us. Please don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course, tap the bell icon so you know when we're going live or uploading a new video for you guys. Of course, don't also forget to show us more love on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're on all platforms. And last but not least, download the AajTak app for your best breaking news and news updates from the world of sport. Thank you all so much for joining us. As always, I've been Shane Reyes, and I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Bye-bye for now.